Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast in all of the internet. My name is Matthew Stoner.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, we got ourselves a very special guest with us on this Monday night that we are recording. Dr. Matthew James Davis, PhD, has joined the podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for that
Absolutely.
full title. Very happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Dr. Matthew James Davis, PhD.
Okay, that may get a little tiring after a while.
I don't
You can
know.
also just call me Matt. That's fine.
Got it. Okay. Well, Matt, you are here to talk about video games and brain research. We're going to discuss how researchers use video games, in their research. I'll also discuss some neuroscience stuff. Glad to have you on here to talk all about that. As far as the
my PhD is in neuroscience, so to clarify that makes sense. Thanks, though.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they call you Dr. Matthew James Davis, PhD
of neuroscience.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Welcome. And going on back to the news, in the news, we're going to talk about the new Switch Lite color, some hype about a new Diddy Kong render, some new NPD sales numbers, including Mario Kart being the best-selling racing genre game of all time. That's what I'm trying to say. And we're going to talk about Indie World that happened last week too.
That's right.
Very good.
Before we get started, what's up, y'all? How you doing?
Good. Yeah, doing good. Got back from my trip to Los Angeles, California, sunny LA. Had a really great time. It was nice to take a little break from work and life for a little bit and just hang with my brother. So shout outs to my brother and his fiance Claire for keeping me there for a week. That was pretty cool of you.
And David, maybe you don't want to self-promote, but can I promote the fact that you were there for a film competition and you won some awards, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were there for Film Threats award show. It's like a drive-in award show. And we came away with a couple awards. We were nominated for 5 of them, and we came away with Best Indie Comedy and Best Director. So,
And when you say we, Best Director, it's really you, David. You were the director.
it takes a village to direct a village.
That's the very diplomatic and true answer.
There's only one chair, though. So
Right. There's only one tall folding chair that says director on the back, which we, of course, had the budget for. But yeah, please, I implore you that if you've been waiting to check out my movie, Call Me Brother, it is now an award-winning film. So go check it out at callmebrother.com. It's a hilarious movie. It's a family comedy, so to speak, in that it's
so to speak.
It's about a family.
Don't take your kids to it.
It's an R-rated rom-com about family. So check it out. Thank you for the plug, Patrick.
Yeah. And to get us back on track, I'm doing okay too. I don't have any awards that I've won though. So not jealous or anything.
Yeah.
I also too don't have any awards.
What about you, Dr. Matt? Did you win any awards?
You win any
week?
doctor awards?
Certainly not in the past 7 days. No. But in years past, I have an award or two, I suppose. But
there you go. There you go. That's why we didn't want just some schlubby doctor on this podcast. We only wanted award-winning doctors.
Yeah.
Gold star. For general stuff, is anybody doing? I feel like we're kind of emerging a little bit from lockdown quarantine. We're getting our vaccines and stuff. Have you emerged to the world? It sounds like you just went on vacation. Maybe that was a little bit of part of it. Mm-hmm. Are you doing new things that you haven't done before since quarantine for a year? For example, I went rock climbing indoors for the first time in a year.
Whoa.
Went bouldering. And I was absolutely garbage at it. I had lost all my ability, the skill, and just tired very quickly, but it was still fucking awesome to be able to do that, because I was like, damn, I missed this.
Kind of surreal, I'd imagine. Yeah,
surreal to be indoors with other people and
kind
of in this physical, sweaty, grimy environment. I was like, still a little reserved, but
yeah,
like at the same time.
I went to the Grand the other day.
Wow.
Played a game of pool. So that was cool. These are like post-vax activities.
Yeah.
Nice. And for all y'all across the pond, the Grand is a bar in Austin.
Yeah. It's known across the United States.
Yeah.
But if you're in England, you might not know what it is.
Well, this is all great, but we should move on. We should talk a little bit about some shout outs. Some last week we had a really great episode with the Whisker Squadron developer Aaron Sanfilippo, and we got some cool reactions to that. It's as always sparked some nice discussion on our Discord. Steve Irwin, Carusetta, Jay, and Andrew Musil, who brought up what I totally agreed with, which was it was really nice to hear him talk about the platform, choosing what platforms to kind of release and go exclusive on, and that kind of stuff was really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to more developers about that very topic.
Exactly. Yeah. It was like a nice. I'm glad we somehow got to that discussion. And then on YouTube, our buddy Ant Keeps Gaming was there. And also Dylan Muss. I want to bring up Dylan Muss because he asked, is he the original Dylan? Since there's been so many Dylans. And yes, you are. And as I think
so, yeah.
I think you said, David, you said Dylan Prime.
Dylan Prime.
And I said Dylan 1.0. So yeah. There you are, Dylan. You're the OG Dylan.
So, apologies to other Dylan.
Yeah. And other Dylan as well, if they're out there.
There will be someday.
So we love to hear from our listeners. So send us a message, leave us a review, share the podcast. We appreciate all that. Send us a listener question. We're doing listener question special episode sometime soon. And also subscribe on YouTube so we can have that Zelda fan fiction audio book recording made, which we will get to if we get to 250 subscribers.
We're getting real close.
We're going.
Getting
We're
real
growing.
close.
Oh, also, hey, check out, it's not out yet, but May 13th, they just dropped the release date for Castlevania Season 4.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure you check that out when it comes out. It's being billed as the final season. So if you want to see what happens to these characters,
I didn't know there was a date.
Netflix.
I didn't know there was a date yet. What is it? May 13th?
May 13th. Yeah. They released
That's exciting. That's pretty soon.
Yeah, it's pretty soon. They released like a teaser poster and like a teaser trailer. I think the trailer is still incoming, but yeah, check it out. It's going to be
and we can
awesome.
say that you work on that, right?
Yeah, we could say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm bringing it up completely randomly. I mean, I would watch it anyway. It's a video game show. It's
great.
It's a good show.
It is really good. It's the final season, right?
Yeah, there was a Deadline article talking about how there are rumors. I guess this is kind of news now, but there's a Deadline article about how there's like rumors that the series will continue in the universe.
Spinoffs or something.
Yeah, like a spinoff show.
I can't ask you
sorts.
questions about this. I don't want you.
Well,
to
no. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because Netflix retweeted that Deadline article. So I think that's a soft confirm that that there might be future seasons in this universe. But as far as the Castlevania 3 storyline with Trevor and Sypha and all them, this will be the final season. So check it out.
Yeah. Before we get to the news, if you're listening to the podcast episode, I want to also say that check out our video version. We're doing new cool things in the video version over on our YouTube page, Super Switch Headz. I'm doing some more production stuff as far as showing cute little thumbnails for our news items. So check it out. Doing new things over there.
You can scroll through and see which news item we're talking about.
Nice. Well, let's talk about the news items for this week. Then, so like Matthew said, there is a new Switch Lite color, and it is blue, not purple. Though a lot of people on the internet thought it looked purple. It's coming out on May 21st, the same day as Miitopia, which I don't think it has anything to do with other than just same date. But
Miitopia would be a good handheld game, so I think it makes
true.
sense to release it on that day. Yeah.
So if you're looking for a Switch Lite and you like the color blue, or you think it looks purple and you like purple, get it.
Do you guys think this is a pretty slick looking Wii? Or Wii? It's not a Wii. Switch Lite.
I think so. I think of
too.
all the colors, I like it the best. Maybe even.
Is this gonna make you go get one?
No.
Yeah.
I have a Switch Lite already, and I don't use it as much as I thought I might. So maybe when things, are more open and I'm leaving the house more, I'll use it even more. But
yeah,
I wouldn't get a second one.
That's fair.
And then, like Matt also said, there was an Indie World presentation. I think this got announced right after we recorded our last episode, so we didn't even get a chance to talk about it or speculate about it. But happened on April 14th. Lots of games shown off. I think there was a lot of speculation about it ahead of time, like, will we see any of the big ones that have been kind of talked about? And no, I think this, it's every time this comes up, like, will we see Silk Song or Sports Story? I think we can draw the conclusion that they like to show new games, which I think is probably for the best. They generally don't show things again, but how did y'all feel?
At least games they haven't announced yet.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So how did y'all feel about this presentation, and what were the standouts?
I'd say for me, the biggest standout was Road 96, the procedurally generated road trip game. That looks the most interesting to me. There's lots of cool stuff that happened in Indie World, but that's one I can't wait to play.
There's a cool trailer too. The way they showed that game, where it's like, take a cab, car, bus, whatever, and the kind of with the different options that or different things that might have. I thought that was presented well as being just an interesting looking game.
Yeah, I love the concept for that game because it's like, I think I've maybe even said this before, maybe just in the Discord, but it reminds me of like a roguelike first person Outrun in a way, where like how Outrun is like not really a racing game, it's just kind of a driving game. You just have to get to the end in time. And that game also has like branching pathways, right? So it feels like if you took that game and just really fleshed it out and turned it into a roguelike, I love the idea of that. I mean, I don't think that it has like Outrun style racing, but I think it's just a great idea for a roguelike. So I'm very excited for that.
For sure. Anything else? The other big one that, they opened with that Road 96 and then they ended with Oxenfree 2. That seemed to be the other sort of big indie game here. I've never played Oxenfree. Did that speak to y'all? Oxenfree 2?
Never played it. I know, David, you have, right?
Yeah, I haven't finished it. Big surprise there, but it is a good game. Actually, Sasha and I did some voices for their other game, After Party, that they did. We play demons in a sex dungeon in hell. So check out After Party. But yeah, Oxenfree 2 is looking and sounding great. Oxenfree was like an indie darling. I'm excited for that. I thought Aztec looked really cool.
Yeah, kind of looked like Hades, but with Aztec gods, maybe, or maybe.
Not exactly. This is the 3D. This was like a 3D.
Oh, okay.
Game. Yeah. But it's like a play on Aztec, but it's like TECH, which I thought was cool. And I always like to see Mexican developers, and games that feature like Mexican and Aztec mythology. I think that's really interesting. So that looked cool. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a huge, great standout indie world for me personally.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of stuff that looked good, but nothing that I'm necessarily like running to pre-order.
Right.
But yeah, There Is No Game looked cool. That looked like a very Matt game.
I can't wait. Yeah. It looks like a WarioWare style, a bunch of mini games that uses like video game genres where you play the mini games in.
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting. I think in the West, I wasn't familiar with this game, but Getsu Fumaden is a Konami game that I guess is coming out next year sometime. And I guess there was a old NES game called that it's like a sequel to, or that it's a, it's not like a remake or anything, but like, I think that's fascinating, for all of us that worry, like, we'll talk about a little bit later, F-Zero or something, franchises can come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Getsu Fumaden is like a precursor to Castlevania. It was like, it's essentially a Castlevania type game, but before Castlevania. It never left Japan. It was on the Famicom. And yeah, it's like a random new entry in that series. It looks cool. It's like, because Metroidvania games these days, I have trouble getting through because I get lost really easily and then lose interest. But this seems to be a roguelite. So that is interesting to me. And the art style is incredible. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
And then before we move on, I thought the Longing was an interesting looking game, an interesting concept, whether or not it ends up being a good game or not, I just think the idea of making people wait 400 days to see an ending is really interesting and different. And like, I think it's cool that somebody's taking a chance on something like that. The real-time aspect of that game.
That's on PC. And from what I understand, if you complete objectives in that game, it makes time move faster.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, you can just wait 400 days to like see the ending. I think you could like turn on the game, turn it off for 400 days, and then turn it back on and see the ending. But I think the kind of idea of the game, like another way to get another ending, is to actually like complete objectives and make time go by faster.
That's interesting too.
Yeah,
I just think the whole concept of that sounded interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's anything else from that showcase y'all want to talk about.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge looks so much fun.
Yeah.
Would love to revisit late 80s, early 90s Ninja Turtles in a beat 'em up game. That looks super fun. Can't wait to play it.
Produced by Dotemu, as apparently we've all been mispronouncing this whole time.
Yeah.
We've been saying .emu.
Yeah.
But we've been fucking wrong.
8-bit dough.
8-bit dough, Dotemu.
And then also unrelated to Indie World, but Picross S6 is coming out April 22nd. There's another Switch Picross entry coming out very soon.
Very
excited.
Guess
like right after this episode comes out. Yeah.
The 22nd. Very excited for that game. Obviously. It looks like they're adding nothing new except for like the colors of the lines are slightly changed on bigger puzzles. So that's like the new feature they're advertising, but doesn't matter. I'm almost done with Picross S5, so I'm ready.
And, I've been resistant to adding this to the notes, even though this has kind of been brewing the last week or two, but I think maybe it's time we talked about it. We talked so much about this like a year or 2 years ago or whenever it was, but there's been more rumors about Nintendo and Microsoft doing something together and what that means, fueled in part by, I guess, the admission that whenever Phil Spencer talks on things, the things on his desk mean something. And he had a big Switch prominently displaced and then confirmed by Jeff Grubb of VentureBeat, who we talk about a lot, who said that the Switch did mean something. And so there's a lot of speculation that once more, maybe this means some sort of xCloud or Game Pass type app on the Switch, or maybe this means another Microsoft character in Smash, or who knows, but that there are rumors and reports of Nintendo and Microsoft buddying up again and doing something. What do y'all think this means? Or do you think we just got to wait and see? Do you think we'll see it at E3? Any thoughts on this?
I would love to see Game Pass on Switch. That would be wild.
My wallet would love to see Game Pass on Switch.
It would have to be some sort of new Game Pass, right? Yeah. Like the Nintendo Switch version, because they can't have all the same games that they have on Xbox, and they can't, you know what I mean, right?
Unless the only way
is cloud or something,
right? Even with xCloud, it's like, I don't think Nintendo would. I get what you're saying, Patrick. It's like if they've got those same games on the eShop, even if it is streamed, I don't think that's something that Nintendo would want to do. Unless it just sells that much more Switches,
and they make a percentage of the Game Pass. But I don't know how that would work. Yeah, like there's a lot of confusion there. So I'm skeptical that that's what it is, but maybe it is. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's what everyone wants or speculates. But it could be as simple as like Xbox controller support for Switch.
Yeah. It could be using Azure backend for cloud streaming for Nintendo stuff. We've seen some Nintendo games already using Microsoft's Azure cloud services. I don't know. I would say if we're going to rank the possibilities, I would put at the bottom is Game Pass, because there's just too many variables there to keep Nintendo from doing it, right? Obviously, that's the one I would want the most, but and in a perfect world, it would be on there. It would be great. I would actually use xCloud if it was on the Switch, because you have controllers like built in. You don't have to hook some weird shit on your phone. But I don't think that's likely. I think next likely is something like Master Chief and Smash. That's kind of like slightly higher up. That would be obviously amazing, and I think that's possible, but still not super likely. I think more likely than anything, this is like a Banjo-Kazooie port or remaster coming to Switch, or like another Microsoft-owned IP being released on the eShop. Be that Rare Replay or whatever. I could see that happening way more likely than any of these other things, but it's good that they're still friends, and talking.
What about you, Dr. Matt? Is there anything you would like to see from Microsoft and Nintendo working together?
I just want to see everybody get along and to, make awesome games and let's just party. That's all. I think I like both of those companies for different reasons, and they have their different niches.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool to see a crossover for sure. But yeah, that sounds good to me.
Jade Empire coming to Switch, confirmed.
Do any of y'all think there's any chance of Nintendo, like it being the other way around, like some sort of Nintendo property going to some Microsoft game or anything like that, or any support of?
Has anybody speculated about the some sort of peripheral or device, maybe like the HoloLens, like having some sort of Nintendo-y type things? Because like I don't know if Nintendo is developing an augmented reality or VR. Like I know they have like the cardboard thing or whatever,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the HoloLens is a pretty cool platform, and they're probably a lot further along than Nintendo. And I think a Nintendo type experiences would fit really well on that platform with the augmented reality, because it's kind of like blocky, colorful worlds that work really well in augmented reality. So
mm-hmm. I think you might be onto something there. Nintendo has been getting into the AR scene more and more recently, especially with like Mario Kart Tour or Mario Kart Home Circuit, excuse me. And stuff like that. They're doing a new Pikmin game that's going to involve AR as well for phones. So that'd be cool. Yeah, if it's on any sort of Microsoft platform, I could see it being something like that rather than putting Mario on Xbox or something. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Like an HD Mario 64 on Xbox. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude. People would be so fucking mad.
8K Mario.
Oh god.
Can you imagine what would happen? Like people would lose their shit. What they price at like $5.
It's coming to Game Pass.
Yeah,
all right,
it's a Game Pass exclusive.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. IGN. We got to get a couple of IGN interviews. We're going to talk about Takeya Imamura, who's now a retired Nintendo artist and designer, did an interview with IGN, which in part is interesting because we love to talk about F-Zero, where obviously he doesn't presently work for Nintendo, but this kind of feels like maybe an insight into the thought process over there about F-Zero, that he said that it's not necessarily a dead franchise, but that it's hard to bring back without a quote, and this is a translation to, grand idea. And I think this has sparked a lot of interest and discussion from all of us F-Zero fans, because that doesn't seem fair. Like that doesn't make sense.
That's a bad take.
A real quick plug for a Talking Sock who has a great video on this. He's like, that's not true for Kirby. That's not true for Pokemon. They churn out the same style games in a lot of these franchises. Even you think about 2D Mario or something, those are kid oriented games, but like,
to be fair though, that and all fairness to a Talking Sock, I don't think that that's a 1-to-1 comparison at all. I think you're talking about two completely different things there. Like Kirby and Pokemon sell, millions and millions of copies each time something comes out. They don't have to iterate. And even then they do still. Kirby will do new things in Kirby games. Not the most recent one, but like a lot of the handheld Kirby games have like added new modes, new multiplayer things. Planet Robobot was really original.
I think his point stands even with the sales stuff of like, I don't know. That's not what he said. He didn't say it has to sell better or something, but maybe that's what it means in part. And also, like, how hard is it to come up with an idea? Like, I can come up with a few. Bounty hunting.
Fucking God.
Yeah, listen, I said this on Twitter. The car is the past. Just get out of the car. Yeah, the car's the problem. Move on from the car.
All right. Well, this has been fun, guys.
This is the part where we bully David about our
They really want there to be an
F-Zero
F-Zero. Listen, if there was an F-Zero game where Captain Falcon got out of his car, okay, maybe I'd buy it, but I wouldn't buy it. Okay, I would like put my foot down in the sand. The thing is, though, okay, I'm on your side there, Patrick. Like, and a talking sock with that video that you're referring to. Like, it's stupid that Nintendo feels like for these franchises that haven't been selling well that they have to reinvent the wheel every time, and that's why that's like the only thing that's going to get people to buy them. Like Star Fox Zero. Well, I mean, that might be a bad example because it was on the Wii U and nobody bought games on the Wii U. But like Star Fox Zero was like unplayable for me. And I'm a huge Star Fox fan. You know, I just couldn't get into the control scheme and looking at two screens at once. It just wasn't working for me. Now, if you know, and I borrowed my friend's game, I tried it out and I was like, cool, I'm not dropping $60 on this. But it's like the Switch has such a huge, massive user base right now.
Right.
Like now is the time that Nintendo needs to just be slapping old franchises on, because it's like Pikmin 3, they just basically grabbed it and slapped it. I mean, they added some new stuff, but it's basically a grab and slap situation. And like, if they just grabbed and slapped fucking F-Zero GX, it would sell probably 2 to 3 million copies, I think. If they made it HD, added online multiplayer, I think that thing would sell like hotcakes. And then you've got that many more people that are going to buy the next iteration of the franchise. So like now not using your old properties, I think is languishing in them and it's wasting them, because you've got an opportunity to get a whole brand new, new fans out of these franchises that, you haven't done in 20 years. So it's only old people that are into them. Anyway, sorry. That's right.
Yeah. That's okay. Well, unless there's anything else on F-Zero, we'll move on to the other IGN interview, which was with the new Pokemon Snap director Haruki Suzaki over at Bandai Namco. And I think one of the more interesting things to come out of this one was them talking about the fact that Pokken Tournament, and that being successful, and the work they did on that is what led them to be asked to be involved with new Pokemon Snap. And it makes you wonder, if this game goes well, will Bandai Namco start making more or be more involved in other Pokemon games and that kind of thing.
I hope so.
Yeah. Also, a few other little interesting tidbits out of this interview that I thought were interesting was that there's over 200 Pokemon in the game. So that's what we can expect. I can't imagine there'll be tons more than 200. And then that while it is, a linear game, there are sort of branching paths and choices, and that when you level up and you go back to an area, there might be different Pokemon there, and they might act differently and that kind of thing, to add that it's not just a very, that it's not super linear, I guess, or super limited in that way. I thought that was interesting. Anything on new Pokemon Snap's coming out at the end of the month? Like the 30th or so, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. So that's very soon. So
that's exciting. I have major nostalgia for that game. I loved the first version. It's just so relaxing, and just it's kind of a unique game mechanic that feels a little bit different than like a platformer or first person shooter or something. It's just like chill, take photos. It's groovy. I like it.
Yeah, I think that'll be cool in handheld too, for that reason, right?
Yeah. Can't wait for the gyro controls on that.
Yeah. And then this is fun. There's a new Diddy Kong render that was discovered on a Nintendo website, on the Japanese website in particular. And it's furrier than maybe previous renders. His fur is more pronounced, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, it's the exact same model and like positioning and everything as the previous Diddy Kong render that was on the site, but now he's got like actual fur instead of just like smooth brownness.
So obviously that leads us to wonder, why would they update that render?
Yeah.
Often it is true that when there are new renders that appear, there is a new game coming. So I don't think it's outrageous to speculate that there could be a new game involving Diddy Kong, whatever that is, whether it's, as some people on the internet are suggesting, Mario Party or another Donkey Kong Country game, which I would hope for over Mario Party personally. But I don't know. Any thoughts on that? You think we can expect something new with
Diddy Kong is the character coming to the Master Chief Collection.
That's the Nintendo Microsoft.
Yeah, they're having the peanut gun in the game.
That's cool. That's lit. I'm into it. Yeah, I don't know. I think new Super Mario Party or Super Mario Party 2 is a good guess. I know Hakro Video 69 has been saying all year and last year that there will be new Donkey Kong this year. And that's been like one rumor that, you know, and say what you will about Hakro Video 69. They've gotten in some hot water before. But they've definitely also gotten some leaks right. And that's one that they haven't like backed down from this entire time. And it is Donkey Kong's 40th anniversary after all. So
yeah,
I'd love to see something new in there, even if it's not a new like Donkey Kong Country Returns type game.
Was there no speculation about Diddy Kong Racing? That would be the most obvious to me if it's Diddy that we're talking about, the Kong in question.
Yeah.
But
that's a rare game.
Yeah, I don't know how the licensing with that works. Is
gotcha.
the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, Donkey Kong Country is a rare game. I think they could probably work that out. Maybe that's the Microsoft
thing right there. Diddy Kong Racing.
Holy shit, we solved it.
We cracked the case.
I lived to see Tip Top on the Switch.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. Even if it's just bringing the N64 game over, you know,
with a new Diddy Kong render.
Yeah, well, you know, if they yeah, right. The whole game
Diddy
looks
Kong.
exactly the same, except he's got like incredible hair. I do wonder though, and I heard this posited somewhere else online, but you know, obviously Retro is working on Metroid Prime 4 right now, but they've also been like hiring a fuck ton for that game, which kind of like makes me wonder, do you think that they have like an A and B team going on Retro? Yeah. You know, and then maybe they've been working on a Donkey Kong, a new Donkey Kong Country 3 or whatever.
If not, why do they need all these people? And if they needed all these people, what were they doing? Yeah, like there's so much questions with.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since they put out a game, you know, and then it's probably going to be quite a few more until the next one. You have to imagine they're probably doing Metroid Prime trilogy in-house, but I mean, I think there's a good possibility that they could have an A and B team situation going on at Retro.
And then the next bit of news here is the US NPD numbers. And what this is a reminder to our listeners, is the US sales numbers for the month of March just came out. Matt Piscatella is a great person to follow on Twitter if you want to follow this kind of stuff. He is in charge of that, and he puts out some of the information and some of the highlights that I want to talk about. If y'all see anything else, we should. And Matt mentioned this: Mario Kart 8 is now the best-selling racing game in the U.S. history.
What did it beat out?
That's a great question. He doesn't clarify that.
F-Zero? No.
Maybe.
I fucking wish.
Yes.
We'd be swimming in F-Zero by now if that were the case.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm gonna look it up. While you keep talking.
So that game, obviously, like one of the notes there is that it continues to be in like the best sellers chart for the Switch in particular, and just in general.
It beat Mario Kart Wii.
There you go. That makes sense, actually. That makes sense.
And then Mario Kart DS, and then Mario Kart 7, and
Mario
then
Kart
Gran
just
Turismo
tops
4.
it all.
Mario Kart's all the way down.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's the biggest franchise.
There you go. The Switch continues to be the best-selling console in the US. This is now 28 months in a row, I believe. And The PS5, however, though, these are all like records that, like, as David points out, probably like who previously held them, the same thing. But like PlayStation 5 is the fastest selling console, he says, in US history. And that's both the number of units and the amount of dollar sales. So, you know, for however long it's been on the market, 5 months or whatever. And then I think it's just interesting to see how well Monster Hunter Rise did in March, even though it came out tail end of March. It's like the best-selling game on Switch. It's like the number 2 game on all platforms. So I thought that was interesting. Just that game seems anecdotally to be very big, and also with some data.
Hyrule Warriors didn't get like 6 million extra sales, did it?
No, David. When are we gonna? It's past the. What are we gonna do about that?
We'll have to figure it out.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Just so y'all know, the graphic thumbnail that I have for the sales stuff is just an arrow pointing up.
Good graphics. There you go.
There you go.
And while we're talking about like the PlayStation 5 and Sony and stuff, this just came out the day we're recording this, but Sony has changed its position, backtracked, however you want to say it, on closing the PlayStation 3 and Vita store.
We did it.
The internet mob wins again.
Super Switch Headz specifically.
Oh, well, it was
featuring
us.
Michael Domingue.
Our episode
changed their mind.
Our Nintendo specific podcast changed to Sony store preference.
Yeah.
So this means that if you make a big enough stink on the internet, you might actually get companies to change their mind, which is both a good and a bad thing. And also, I think this is a good thing in general. I'm sure they'll shut these stores down at some point, right? Like nothing lasts forever, we talked about, but there's no reason to shut them down right now, I guess, unless they're unless they really are just losing money. But they realized that the bad publicity was worse than losing money, I guess.
Yeah. I think they saw too many skull and crossbone flags flying in the distance, and then scared them off a little bit. A little scared of the piracy that was going to ensue.
And then our last little bit of news before we move on to our main topic is Lego Super Mario related. So it was noticed that, so this is interesting. As somebody who has Lego Mario stuff, like that you can update your little Mario character because there's an app. And on the most recent update, people noticed that Mario, after he wakes up, because if you lay Mario down, he falls asleep. You pick him back up, he wakes up. Sometimes we'll call out for Luigi, which is a new thing since that most recent update that just happened this week. And so everybody's wondering, does that mean there's Lego Luigi? Lego is actually, and Nintendo, or Lego, I think it was Lego, has kind of winked about the possibility of there being a Luigi. And then now there's actually a leak that's happened, and the box art got uploaded to Amazon, the Amazon China, and you can actually see what the Lego Luigi and Lego Luigi set looks like. It looks very legit, so I think it is the real thing. Comes with a pink Yoshi and a Boom Boom. So this got me and my kid to actually play with our Lego Mario set a little bit more. Unfortunately, it's just been sitting on the table for months now, but and really we only played with it enough to try to get him to say Luigi.
You just laid him down and picked him up a bunch of times until he said it. Yeah.
What does he say? Oh, Luigi.
He goes like, it's kind of like
what's his tone of voice? Is he like,
is he mad?
Missing?
He's like, hey, Luigi.
Yeah.
It does. At first he seems a little confused, but at the end he goes, Luigi. Or something like that. Like it's kind of like Luigi,
like he's
Luigi.
Like he lost his memory and it's just coming back to him. Like
my brother's name is Luigi. Yeah,
it's almost like he's a Pokemon named Luigi.
Luigi.
I did also want to mention on Facebook, we were talking about this, and I think it's Stephen Essling or Elsing. I apologize, Stephen, if I'm mispronouncing your name. I don't have that. I should have had this in front of me. Had the nice point of like, it's kind of a dystopian thing where your toys update and then advertise to you the new toy, which is a fair point.
That's dark, man. I love it.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. Something that isn't on the news, by the way, just reminded me because you were talking about the Facebook group. But they did release new teaser posters for the Illumination Mario.
Are those real?
movies.
I couldn't figure out if those were real or not.
Maybe they're not. Maybe I just got trolled in my own Facebook group, but
they look real, but I don't know
they
if
look
they're real
real
or not.
Yeah, I saw those and I did very, very basic research into it. And what I found was like, we're not sure if these are real or not. They've just started circulating on the internet.
I will edit that out.
I don't know if it's true. And I think it's interesting. You can look it up real quick.
I will keep it in.
Because there was no like announcement about it. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
So I think they might be fake, but I'm not sure.
Whatever.
What is real, man?
The movie is coming out in 2022 anyway, so whether or not they're real, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, dystopian, Chucky, toys that want to kill you.
Well, that's it for our news and rumors section, and we'll take a break. And when we come back, we will talk with our guest, Matthew James Davis, PhD, about video games and brain research. All right, so this week we have Matthew James Davis, PhD, on to talk to us about neuroscience, which is your field, as I understand it, and to discuss that and sort of how that relates to video games, how researchers might use video games, maybe some of the results of research into video games, and that kind of thing. I don't want to get too deep into this because I'm not the expert. You are. So maybe you can first just kind of introduce yourself and your background and that kind of thing and what you're yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. My name is Matt. I got recently graduated with my PhD in neuroscience, where thank you. Appreciate that. Mid-pandemic, had to do my dissertation talk over Zoom, so it was a little bit different but we've all had those unique experiences, but it was great to get done. And I primarily studied learning and memory on a broad basis, and specifically, we used rodent models to investigate the sort of algorithms of the brain that the brain uses to form memories and to retrieve them, and how those algorithms lead to activity patterns in the brain that actually stamp a memory into the hardware of the brain. So we study this really nitty-gritty biological process about how memories are formed and whatnot. And
it's fascinating.
It was cool work. You guys asked me to talk about video games, and there's some relevancy to that in animal research, which I'd like to talk about.
Sure.
And I had that jumping off point, but I also wanted to do kind of like a broad assessment of what video game research is like in the field, in humans, how video games are used, and sort of what some of the results are. I won't say that I'm like a deep dive expert because it wasn't my dissertation or anything, but I have enough sort of experience to get some nibbles of what some of the research looks like. So we can chat about that.
That's all we can handle are nibbles.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm stealing Matt's questions here, by the way. That is Matthew, Mathyu, Matthew. But before we get into that kind of specific, maybe a little bit more about yourself. Like what got you into this field? Have you always been interested in the brain? And then like what made you want to go get a PhD in it?
Yeah. So I sort of really zoned in on brain and mind, and in undergrad, like at my freshman year, I just sort of saw like psychology. I was like, that's seems like an interesting route. Actually, I think it sort of stems back to like just kind of by nature, I really want to dive into the nitty gritty of like how a thing works. What are the mechanisms underneath? I remember like as a kid, I would take apart telephones, like old school rotary telephones, like what the fuck is going on in this, and take it apart and see all the mechanisms, see all the electronics and whatnot. I enjoyed that process. And that's sort of paired with like a spark of the brain and mind's psychology, like that is the essential components of who we are, and I want to see what the mechanisms of that is. So I studied psychology in undergrad, and my senior year took a neuroscience course where we actually worked with rodents, and we got to go into a brain and see and do manipulations on those brains in animal models, and that was absolutely fascinating because it was like that specific project. We got like pharmaceutical grade cocaine and we injected it into the rats, and we measured their,
that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. No, it was a total. I was like tripping out because like that how that I was allowed to do this. It's tightly regulated by the DEA, to log everything. But it was, you get to see really potent results when you're using something like as crazy as cocaine to like induce reward activity and whatnot. So I did that in undergrad, and just natural continuation. I was like, I like academics, I like research, gonna do that for grad school.
Cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a couple of different topics we might survey. Is there one that you want to start with?
Yeah. What the biggest impression that I got coming away from doing an overview of this research is there is a huge amount of variability in the types of studies, the types of games that are used, and their conclusions and their findings, and the quality of the study. So it's a very heterogeneous literature. So it does make it a little bit difficult to really see what's going on and to discover like very, very potent generalizable mechanisms.
Video games are good for you. You heard it here.
This is no, exactly. Like, you'll see a headline in the media that's like, it's either video games are great for you, they're going to solve all your problems, or video games are horrible for you, they're going to make you murder your parents.
Right.
So the truth is, in between, there are some positive things that video games do, and there's some negative things that potentially could happen. On the positive side, people look at things like through video game exposure, increasing cognitive abilities like attentional control or memory or decision making or certain or certain sensory processing. So you could have like in these enhanced cognitive abilities, and there's specific studies looking at training to different types of video games to train such abilities.
Stop right there. We got the good news.
But
we want the bad news. Yeah.
No, before we move on to the bad news, though, I wanted to ask about that because I think as somebody who plays a decent amount of video games, and I think most of our listeners and David and Matthew, I think you all might agree too, right? Like, I think my attention is stronger on a video game than other things. And I think my memory for like, oh, that relates to this other puzzle I solved a while back might be stronger in a video game than in other situations. But the question is like, does that extrapolate beyond video games, or does that just mean like you play video games, you get better at spatial awareness in video games? You know what I mean? Or something like
that is like the essential key question that people have, because you'll see brain training games like, I don't know, there's like Luminosity, and there was other neuroscience driven technology companies that were saying use this and this will enhance your cognitive ability. And turns out that the science on that, it was a lot of marketing, it was a lot of hype, and it didn't really have a lot of care. Brain, oh my God, he has the Nintendo Switch brain training.
But that's why that game isn't out in the US, I think, right?
That's right. I had to buy this game from the European eShop because they actually don't sell it in the US because they got sued because there is no correlation between actually training.
You're not training your brain,
right?
it's a false.
You're just doing
title.
Sudoku for fun, basically.
Yeah, no, which is an acceptable thing to do. It's good to chill out and play something where you're relaxed. You may be going away from more stressful activity, so it's good in that sense for your brain. Lowering stress, if that's what that does for you.
I mean, you have to think though, in some sense, and forgive me, I'm a complete layman on this topic, but I think there is something to be said about using your brain in ways that you normally wouldn't during the day, right? Like, for instance, one of the things in Dr. Kawashima's brain training is just reading out loud, right? Like it doesn't it literally does nothing. There's no way for it to, there's no mic on the Switch, there's no way for it to know that you're actually reading out loud, but it's just basically like activating that part of your brain can be helpful, right? Like, like if you don't read out loud for a long time and then you do all of a sudden, you're probably not going to be quite as acute as you were at one point. Am I Am I off base there?
Well, first of all, are you sure there's no mic on the Switch? Because it pulled up the brain games when we were talking about it.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, no, like doing a task that you would not normally do, I think that would be beneficial. And specifically, there is some research that addresses the question, like what is the type of task that is going to enhance cognition? It is going to have transfer carryover to other tasks besides the video games. And there's this work by this professor Adam Gazzaley. He's at UCSF, and he is really interested in using video games to do cognitive enhancement in healthy populations and in people that have neurological disorders and whatnot. And he developed a video game that he shows has a lot of promise. It's called Neuroscience. And basically it's a racing game where you're just like in a cart and you're just racing along. But there's an added component where there's a bunch of distracting signs. I think they're like billboards that come up, and you have to pay attention to the racing and do well at the racing, but also pay attention to these signs at the same time and identify words as they pass, or say when you see a certain word or something. So it's they call it multitasking because that's what that is. And what they showed was younger folk are much better than older folk. Like people in their 20s are way better than people in their 70s. So there's a big drop off as you get older in this sort of multitasking cognitive control paradigm. There was also a drop off. It's like a linear drop off. So 20s are the best, and then 30s actually have the biggest drop off, which is unfortunate. I feel like we're all in that range.
That's us right now.
And that made me a little sad. But 70s are way worse. So it only gets worse on that task. But what they showed was if you do training on this NeuroRacer game in people that are 70 plus, they do get better. I think it was 12 hours of training or whatnot. They got way better at the game. They got way better at multitasking. And the critical finding was this, there was transfer to unrelated tasks. And these were, I think, sustained attention tasks and working memory tasks. So that was a really exciting finding. Like, yes, we do have this specific type of video game that can enhance carryover to other cognitive abilities, addressing some cognitive deficits that older people have. And it seems to be reliant on a specific type of training. It's not just any video game. It has to induce this these demands on cognitive control. So the multitasking, the distraction, trying to maintain attention, that seemed to work really well. And there was corresponding effects on the brain, as you can imagine. If there's behavioral effects, the source of that is your brain. And they had EEGs on in the study, and they were looking at the activity of neurons as a collective, in which there's oscillations that you can measure through EEG, and there's oscillatory activity that indicates different cognitive states and whatnot. Anyways, they found this theta midline activity was increased after the training in the older folk. So that indicates that there's plasticity occurring during the training in the brain. That is leading to the behavioral outcome. And it's exciting because older folk also have reduced plasticity.
Right.
They're not able to learn as well, and they have these reduced reaction time and multitasking and whatnot. But that type of training does seem to help. So that is a very promising avenue of research that I saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
I think that kind of begs the question, obviously, then of like, could that then apply? I think that begs the question on whether or not that plasticity can occur in older generations for games that have multitasking included, like say a game like Tetris 99 or something like that, where you're having to kind of focus on the other players while you're focusing on your own right? Now, the question is, would that carry over for games like that, or would it have to be a game that's very much like crafted to get that result, right?
That is a big question. That's very interesting because obviously I haven't played the game Neuroracer myself, but it does sound a little dry.
Right.
It's like a neuropsychological tool. It's better than your normal psychological tests where you're just like literally looking at a blank screen and you press a button when you see a red dot or something like that.
Right.
It's better than that. But yeah, it is a little dry and something that's already widely available that people enjoy. I would hypothesize that that would carry over, especially if you're getting feedback on like improving on the game and you can see that progress. I think that it would have similar effects because it's a very tapping into a similar underlying mechanism, this distraction, this multitasking and whatnot. So yeah, I think one of the other important components of their study was progressive training, where it got harder as you did better. So it's challenging you a little bit. And I imagine, I don't know if Tetris 99 would have such a component. There's maybe ways to implement that. But
I mean, it does in the way in which the matchmaking is concerned, right? You know what I mean? Well, it's like the game.
True. Yeah.
The game gets faster as you go, and then also the higher level you get, the harder competitors you face. You know what I mean? So in that way, I suppose there is. But I mean, I can totally understand that. Yeah, something like Neuroracer is like built to study this, right? And so. Yeah, I guess like a lot more research would have to be done to find like really conclusive evidence.
Yeah, in the lab, you develop something, you develop a test, and you stick with it, and you study for like 20 years or something because you already have those earlier studies that you need to compare to later studies. So things kind of do move slowly in that sense. But they also that guy started a company. I was kind of sounding like an ad or something, but I still thought it was cool that they're developing more immersive games that have these principles of learning and teaching. And so, the next level beyond Neuroracer, I think he mentioned that to do that, obviously you add a lot of story, you add visuals, and you add music. So they hired like professional LucasArts developers to work on these games, and they're going to have all the elements of a really cool video game with some of those neuropsychological tricks to induce training, plasticity, and whatnot. So I think that sounds pretty promising too.
Yeah.
Well, you gave us one of, if not one of the main or some of the positives of playing video games. You hinted that there might be some research that's
lay it on us, man. I think it's time.
Yep.
Killing our parents.
Well, if you don't have parents, then you're fine.
Orphans can play video games. No problem.
Sounds good.
So people talk about this link between violence and video games, increasing violence. As far as I'm aware, I didn't even look at it specifically recently, but everything I've read shows that link is unfounded. There's a lot of confounding variables, and that was completely overblown and just an untrue narrative. So I don't think we need to worry too much about that.
That always stank of politics to me anyway.
Yeah. Very, very much so. But one thing that is definitely concerning is the potential addictive aspects of video games. We've all heard the stories of gamers that are doing 18-hour marathon sessions or whatever on WoW or Fortnite or whatever people are doing nowadays, and doing that for weeks on end and grinding and whatever. I think part of that is what you're missing out on in the rest of your life that you're replacing with just playing video games. If you're not getting exercise, you're not moving around, which is incredibly important for your health. Maybe you don't have the best diet. Maybe you're not socializing as much and whatnot. And maybe the video game playing is a coping mechanism for the other things going on in your life, and as a distraction and helping. So it's a bit of a newly recognized phenomenon, and I think getting some. I think it was put in the DSM, the psychological Bible, so to speak, semi recently, and having some diagnostic criteria helps like people address it. Psychologists and psychiatrists address that, which is good. But yeah, they do have that dark side of potential addiction.
And this is just an opinion question, but I'm not disagreeing that video games can be addictive and that it might even be deserving of its own category. But don't you think that like that seems a little unfair on video games, or do you think that it's fair that like maybe there's an addiction to media or to social media or to movie watching or TV watching or something like that, that those don't have their own designation?
I think you can certainly be a couch potato in a number of ways. And
but maybe it's the dopamine in particular that video games.
Well, yeah,
like, is that, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, is there something specific?
If I can jump in real quick, I mean, I think it is fair to say that video games are inherently more addictive than other forms of media because that's like the whole point of a game. It's like the feedback loop, right? And you talk about that in learning. You know, we did an episode about e-learning and the gamification of the learning process, and that's like something that keeps people coming back to learning. It like helps with the kind of constant carrot dangling, and and that's why gotcha games are so addictive, right? It's you work for X number of hours that's been measured to work through QA testing, right? And then it all of a sudden gives you a little reward. And then, like you were saying, that's a dopamine rush, right? And kind of chasing after that dopamine rush. I would think anyway that would make games more addictive than other forms of media.
And in terms of like psychological neuroscience differences is the interactive component with video games, meaning you're performing an action to potentially get rewards. And that's a very potent form of conditioning, operant conditioning. That versus moving watching, which is relatively passive, I speculation that maybe that is one of the things that drives that difference. And there there's a lot of immersion with video games. It could potentially be more engaging, immersive, rich experience. There's also specifically the problem of the gambling loot box type of scenarios, which are people have criticized for being addictive and exploiting children in terms of gambling and whatnot. So that absolutely is a very powerful stimulus for potential addictive behaviors. But
just for a point of clarity of like, we're talking about video games being addictive, but just because you play a lot of video games doesn't necessarily mean that you have an addiction.
Nope. No. I think all things in life with the appropriate balance can be fine. As long as it's not having negative impacts broadly on the rest of your life is probably okay. Right. There's one person that I respect a lot in this space is this guy named Healthy Gamer GG_GG. He's a Twitch streamer and a YouTuber. He talks about mental health, and he's a Harvard trained psychologist. And he talks to gamers on Twitch. He does interviews and whatnot with some of the top streamers, and talks about their mental health issues. Not just video game addiction, but everything. And coming at it from a gamer perspective, because he's also a gamer. And I think he has a really cool channel. I'd definitely check him out if you're interested in more mental health and video game topics.
Very nice. Well, I know this is a very broad survey, but we just kind of talked a lot about sort of research into video games. Was there another topic, or is there anything we didn't cover in that one?
No, I mean, I kind of like the broad overview of it. I could talk, maybe 5-ish minutes more about animal stuff. I don't know how much time we have, but animals play video games too. turns out, in the lab. They don't just pick up a...
Not in like a forest.
Not in a forest. I don't think your cat is going to pick up, your Switch and start playing Pikmin. But yeah, the attractive thing about a video game in a laboratory context is the amount of control that you have over the stimulus. If you're just running around the real world, you see a bunch of things, you don't know exactly what you're going to encounter. But video game, as a researcher, you can give the exact stimulus to the animal, the human, whatever you're researching, and you can also manipulate that stimulus in sort of non-real ways. You can manipulate the physics of that environment. You can manipulate the you can make abstract visual stimuli that you wouldn't encounter otherwise. So yeah, all that control is what makes it a good research tool. And in particular, I did rodent research with mice and rats, with learning and memory and spatial navigation. And there's this spatial navigation paradigm that uses virtual reality in mice and rats. And basically, to do a lot of neuroscience, we have to fix the animals in one place. And so we can do our recording tools, we can do the electrodes or the microscopes to record the neural activity. But that means they can't move around the real world. So they have these VR setups where you can sort of trick the animal into thinking that it's moving in the world by putting it like on a little treadmill and then project it in front of it. There's like a VR screen, this 3D environment.
Got it. Mice are playing Half-Life Alyx across the world.
Exactly. They're that is essentially what's happening. But it is it's an alpha version of Alyx, because it's like in these experiments there's one hallway, just one single hallway,
right?
That the animals will run down, and then we record spatial activity and neural spatial activity from that. But that's sort of what these environments look like, and they've actually shown that when animals are in these setups, they're head fixed and they're looking at VR, their neural activity in their learning areas, the hippocampus, looks quite a bit different than their neural activity in the hippocampus when they're in the real world. So they took
in what way?
They made a VR version of a box of a chamber, and exactly like a real world chamber, and they recorded neurons in the real world and in VR. And in VR, the spatial activity, the spatial signatures were diminished quite a bit versus the real world. So there's something about this VR paradigm that made neural activity go down globally. And the speculation is that in VR, sure, you have your visual stimulus happening, but you don't have the other stimuli, the sense of motion through a space. You don't have mice, in particular, use odor cues as they move around the world. They use their whiskers along the sides of the boxes. So like the visual, is one component, but they're missing all of these other components that they integrate to make a really strong spatial signal. So that is lacking. And then I talked to this professor that did this research, Dr. Mehta at UCLA, and he was pretty concerned about the wide use of VR, like in humans even, without necessarily knowing like all of the underlying neurological changes that it could occur. If we're in VR environments as humans and we're getting these mismatched signals that we're not normally used to, what are the long-term implications of that? I think if you've tried VR, like you already have an acute sense of that with like getting sick from moving, but not having the vestibular feedback that you're moving through the real world. But
that disconnect there is what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that results in nausea and sickness and whatnot. But if you're sending like your higher order brain areas, your hippocampus, your prefrontal cortex, these signals that are it's not used to, does that have long-term impact, whether neutral or bad or good? I guess that's not known. But there is this one piece of data from the animals that suggests the signal has changed, and that's just something to note, something to be potentially concerned about. So
that's interesting. Like anecdotally, like I play VR a lot. VR is super fun and interesting to me. But when I was playing it heavily, like Half-Life Alyx or Super Hot, after like a couple of hours, I take the headset off. There's a disconnect that I have from feeling my hands or my arms. Like my arms aren't mine.
When you're back in the real world.
When I'm back in the real world, like my brain wants to move my arms, but my arms don't move.
Yeah.
And so there's like a couple second disconnect, but they feel like a different part of my body or feel like they shouldn't be there. Whereas
that's really freaky.
Like because like when you're playing Half-Life Alyx, you have hands, but you don't have arms. So you have these free floating hands. And so it was weird to have arms again. So just to like kind of connect what you were saying, like that totally makes sense that there could be like a mismatch or a misunderstanding of, body presence.
Yeah. And if you do that for, years, for many hours a day, is there long-term potential negative impact from that? You don't want to feel like your arms aren't your own forever.
This is true.
I mean, there's
speak for yourself.
Yeah, no. I mean, I like my hands. I like my arms.
You get to keep your hands.
Yeah.
Okay. just this part. But yeah, like that. There's phantom limb syndrome when somebody has an amputated, body part. They still imagine that it's there, and that it's like doing weird contortion things, like it's always bent to 90 degrees in some impossible angle.
Right, but couldn't VR then maybe help with something like that? Like, right? Like, is a flip side of that?
100%. But yeah, so I guess we're the theme of bad to good to good to bad. But yeah, that's some of the bad stuff. But yeah, no, the good stuff I think that we don't know, but I'm sure people are looking into that. I know people are using, VR training for like neuropsychological benefits, neurological disorders, potentially I think helping with certain types of paralysis rehabilitation.
Yeah, I can say from my experience, I did a lot of physical therapy, and they involved VR headsets in that.
Oh, really? Whoa, yeah. Cool. Yeah,
it was helpful.
What was that? What was like the game, or what was the environment?
I mean, it was kind of another form of multitasking, but it's physical rather than mental, right? It's like aiming at things while this is a lot for people that had to be rehabilitated. Like I for instance had to relearn how to walk after I had a botched back surgery a few years ago. Okay. And so focusing, turning your head and moving while walking, or even just while standing still, could help a lot in those ways. And I think it helped with balance. It helped with all sorts of stuff. So I know at least in the physical space that has been a huge help.
Yeah. So, there's the good as well, with that type of stuff. So yeah, so that's what I had on animals.
I just to touch briefly, this is not animals, but what you were talking about, Matt, about that kind of lingering effect of the VR once you return to the real world. I think that as far as I understand from the very little research I've done, that's been seen in lots of kinds of video games and not just in VR. There's obviously the Tetris effect, which is a psychological phenomenon that's been studied quite heavily, which is where, people who play Tetris for a long time, for long periods, or frequently will just see the game in their lives well after it being played. It shows up in their dreams. It shows up on the road, Tetris blocks like coming towards them, or in the shower with drips going down the walls. I found whenever I play games like Rock Band, and this is a more simplified thing, but when I play games like Rock Band or Guitar Hero, when your eyes are going up and down the track of the game, and as soon as your eyes kind of just have this conditioning to go up and down, so whenever you stop playing, it kind of looks like the TV is moving upwards, the whole room is moving. I know there's stuff like that in all games, not just in VR, and those kind of like lingering effects I find very fascinating.
To piggyback on that, and I've said this in the Facebook group before, but I've had experiences like this too. Like played a lot of Street Fighter 2 as a kid, and I remember seeing that as I would fall asleep all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got really into lucid dreaming for a period of time. And one of the ways to get into lucid dreaming is you keep a dream journal. And I found that as a person who played a lot of video games, a lot of my dreams involved video games. Like I was in a video game, or there were video characters, like it was just a very common theme. And like that kind of stuff makes you wonder what video games are doing to our brains on different levels,
Sure.
that aren't being studied, or that it's like hard to study long-term stuff too, probably.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is any experience that you have has to be processed by your brain. So it's going to affect it. So if playing a video game, it's going to affect your brain in some way. Yeah.
Good to know.
We should wind this down. Is there anything, any questions anybody wanted to make sure we talked about, or any talking points you wanted to make sure we reach, or any sort of final thoughts about video games and brain research?
I think like generally, we talked about how researchers use video games are like companies using brain research in their video games to like make better video games for better or for worse.
I think
imagine for worse.
Always for worse. Like you could I think I read something that you can collect data analytics on how engaged people are with various components of a video game, and how likely are they to do microtransactions or whatever. So that is, I suppose, the worst side of things.
The predatory practices.
Yeah. Some of those practices. And there's a whole other side of how video games may be changed by new interface technology, brain computer interfaces in particular. There's because we've been using the controller for so long as our interface with our gaming. We use the keyboard and mouse as with the computer. What's the next interface gonna be? So they're looking at eye tracking is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
In the VR application, it's going to help with the hardware and the graphic side of things with the foveated rendering, where you do eye tracking and you look at where people are actually gazing on the screen, and you do high definition calculations for that specific spot, and then the periphery is more blurry, so that saves processing power. So that's a practical thing. But you can also do eye tracking to where are people looking on the screen, and what are they attending to? What are they most interested in?
Mm-hmm.
And if we present certain stimuli, do people look there more? Are they more engaged or whatever? If somebody were to put on like a Dead or Alive extreme beach volleyball, and to do eye tracking on that, what would they discover that people were attending to on that
just
screen?
The net and balls.
That's it. It's I'm not a scientist, but it's definitely not the boobies and butts.
So that's a little bit of and people raise concerns about the privacy invasion of that. Should we allow the collection of that type of data, those type of biometrics? What is that going to mean when you give that to a company? And Facebook is developing a new interface that's for the Oculus. That's an EMG armband, and that records muscle activity in your wrist. And what they're gonna do from that is like get gesture data. They can tell exactly like how your hand is positioned just by recording these muscles. And they can use that obviously for VR applications to make really cool interface and whatnot. But the sort of skeevy thing about that is, or the cool thing, depending on your perspective, is you can actually tell what somebody's intention to move is from recording these muscles without having a movement. So they do this demonstration where they have people like resting like they're about to type on a keyboard, except it's not a keyboard, it's just like a blank desk. And then they have the people think about moving their hands in a typing fashion, and then they can actually decode that and make the hands move in the VR space, so without actually moving.
Wow,
so
that's fascinating.
Cool next level technology. and interfaces that will be fun to use in a VR context. But you're also giving a big company more access to extra data about you.
And it's that anytime like technology is used for predictive purposes, you run into some really kind of scary dystopian sort of stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I know there have been some research. There's been some research done into just like extrapolating imagery from brain scans as well. I find that to be fascinating and a potential like new avenue for gaming as well. There's been studies where big block letters were shown to people for extended periods of time. They took those images in and then they did brain scans and were able to like extrapolate those images from the brain scans.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So that kind of research, I think, potentially has some potential for future gaming connotations. But it's more of that predictive stuff, right? It's like taking from what doesn't exist yet and then creating something out of it. So I find that stuff fascinating but scary.
Mm.
I think there's going to be some sort of movement for some standards for like, or there should be some sort of like, I don't know, Bill of Rights or something like that are some sort of regulation on what companies can collect, how they can use that data, where they inform you about how they're using it and all that. I would hopefully, I would like to see some of that type of regulation for companies that are collecting these biometric data and whatnot. So hopefully that happens.
Cool. Well, there's so much more we could talk about because this is such a big topic, and who knows, maybe we will sometime, but not today. We should wrap it up.
We just got the nibbles. We'll have you back for the full course.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for talking to us about that. We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the games we've been playing. This week, I don't have anything new to report. Same thing. I've been playing some classic games on the NES and SNES apps. I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter Rise. I do feel like I'm still very early on into that game and the skill. I played some with Steve Irwin, Matt Hobby, and Austin and Adam on the like last night, for example. And it's really funny to play that game with people who are much better than you because they're all talking about things I have no idea what they're talking about. But they're also, every time something comes up, it's like, well, what do the slots on the, this thing do? And somebody's like, I'm not sure. Like, it's such a complicated game, but it's addictive and I'm having a lot of fun. And I feel like I got to that next little plateau where I'm like, ooh, I felt myself getting a little better.
There you go.
Brain
plasticity enhanced.
Yeah.
But that's me. What who wants to go next?
I'll go next. Yeah. I've been playing 2 games, still playing It Takes Two with my partner. It's still so much fun. It is definitely increasing our level of communication in both positive and negative ways.
I want to jump in. I've also been playing It Takes Two. I've been enjoying it as well.
Yeah. What do you think so far?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I mean, like every once in a while, it becomes a cutscene, and then I'm like, I just want to keep playing.
Right.
Like that book, I find to be very annoying. But it's a great game to play. It's fun to play a game that's built around co-op like that. I'm very much enjoying it.
Yeah, you have to play co-op. There's like puzzles that you have to do together or actions you have to take in sequence. Like no matter what, you can't be successful if you don't talk to each other. It's cool in that way. Second game I've been playing, I picked up Manifold Garden. Have you all played Manifold Garden?
Not yet, but I really want to.
It has broken my brain. It's inspired by MC Escher. So it's a puzzle game, but if you ever seen the scene in Inception where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is like kind of flipping and the room is spinning, that's the game where you change the orient of, you like go on a wall and you can spin the room and there are puzzles and the physics change. But the craziest thing, and it takes about an hour or so to get here, is that it's an infinite, so you can fall infinitely, where you might have to look down or up or left or right or completely fall through the whole level to see a new platform.
Mm.
And it's the type of game where I can only probably play like 30 minutes at a time, because it's hard to switch that style of puzzles. But I make this recommendation. Don't go from playing Manifold Garden to any FPS game. Because I played Manifold Garden and switched to Apex, and I tried spinning the map. It doesn't do it.
Affected your brain.
Yeah, right.
My brain was so like engaged with that kind of mechanic. But it's a fucking beautiful game.
Manifold Garden was at last year's AGDQ. I think they did a speed run of that game. Have you seen that?
No.
I'd say maybe beat the game first so you don't have anything major spoiled. But that was my first exposure to that game, was watching the speed run. And so if that just playing the game is mind breaking, like watching the speed run, I was like, what? I have no idea what the fuck is going on. It was totally batshit. But yeah, I'd love to try it out.
Man, it's a great puzzle game. And it's the kind of puzzle game that I'm frustrated while I'm playing it. But like a couple days later, I'm like, man, this is such a satisfying game that's difficult to complete that it, makes you feel good.
Mm.
That sounds like it'll definitely be good for your brain. It's giving me Portal vibes. I just kind of took a look at the trailer, but it looks like super cool, artsy. I'm definitely gonna get that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's great. Let me know
what
you think.
Very like minimalistic aesthetic to it as well, which is cool. Yeah. I'll go next. I've been playing a lot of games because I spent a ton of time on a airbed in my brother's house in LA, and I played a lot of games there. Still been taking my time with Kaze and the Wild Masks. Haven't quite finished that game yet, but I'm getting close. I'll pick it up, lose at a level a bunch of times, and then beat the level, and then like kind of move on to a different game. So I'm on the last world of that game. I'm very much enjoying it, and I'll probably go back and try to 100% it too, because it's one of those games that really, it's like a Donkey Kong Country game where it's like all the little collectibles. You want to get everything. It really encourages you to do so. I got 2 new games. I'll say before that, I did play, in addition to It Takes Two being a good co-op game, which I've been playing with Sasha, we played another game co-op that was super fun, which was Paperball Deluxe. And you would think that game, because it's so like frustrating and difficult, might be kind of hard to like introduce to a new player that isn't necessarily into those kinds of games already and doesn't have that skill set already involved. But there's a really great co-op mode in Paperball Deluxe called Flip Mode. And the way this mode works is I think it's 2 seconds, maybe a little bit less than 2 seconds, the control of whoever's controlling the ball changes from person to person.
Whoa.
So you're basically playing full screen with the same map and everything, but your control is constantly shifting. And that sounds like it would be totally chaotic and not work very well. But the end result is that both players are just always controlling. They're always moving, even if they're not controlling, because at any second it can switch back to you.
Yeah, you're both trying to do the same kind of thing almost at the same time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like when you... Oh, it's good. I think you're going to say that.
Yeah, you're playing the game, but you're not playing the game.
Right.
Your brother handed you the controller.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It's basically that, but it does flip over to the other person, right? And so it's really good. And so like if somebody's way more experienced at like ball rolling games or has played that level and understands it a lot better, it's actually really fun because even if the other person is about to go way off course, as soon as the other person gets control, they like flip it back onto where it's supposed to go. And it's a really creative and interesting form of co-op that I would really recommend, especially, of course, if you like ball rolling games.
I would love to see that mechanic in other games. I think that would work really well, and it might be easy to just grab it and slap it onto other games.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if they make any new kind of Super Monkey Ball games like in the series, I would love to see a mode like that implemented. It feels like it's not that hard to implement, right? It's just grab it and slap it, like you said. And then I've been playing 2 new games I'll talk briefly about because I haven't played them a ton. But one is Lo-Fi Ping Pong. It's like a $5 game. I think it's like a mobile game that's on the eShop. It's basically just a rhythm game, but where you're playing ping pong and it's all set to lo-fi beats. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Nice.
It's just basically a 3-button rhythm game, but it's great little distraction with some chill music. And it's fun to play with headphones on. And it has a nice little, like, you know, palate cleanser in between other games. I've been enjoying that. And then the last one I picked up was Disc Room. And this is a game I've been wanting to get for a while because it's made by Jan William Nijmegen. I'm not sure you pronounce his last name, but he was one half of Lambeer, Jan Willem. And great developer. I've loved pretty much all of his games, so I really wanted to pick this up. It was on sale recently in the indie sale, and I picked it up. It's basically just a game where you're a little dude, and there's a bunch of fucking disc saws in the room, and you're just trying to avoid them. And that's all there is to it. It's super simple. It's super dumb, but it's a lot of fun. And every single room that you're in has a leaderboard on screen at all times. So it's like, it really makes you want to do better than your friends that also own the game. And this is a shout out to Brian Bonnet. It is my goal to beat your time in every single room. And so far I am succeeding, Brian Bonnet. So the race is on. Open up that game. Let's have our high scores go back and forth so you can avoid getting hit by saws for the longest. So that's what I've been playing recently. And what about you, man? What have you been playing?
The single player game I played the most recently is Minecraft. So it's just like,
nice.
I can't let go of my teenage years, I guess, or trying to, get in touch with that. But yeah, it's, I loved Legos, and that gives me that sort of same Lego-y feel. It's just building shit and exploring the world. So that's kind of what I've done. And then I've, some social games like, through quarantine, good number of Among Us sessions with Matthew and other folks. That was always good. And I also really enjoyed the game Phasmophobia, if you guys talked about that.
Yeah, we've talked about that one before.
That's a really fun co-op-y horror game. And I think they released an update sort of recently, so we need to play that again, Matthew.
Dude, I'm always down. The ghosts come out more frequently now. And it's a little bit harder and maybe spookier depending on the person.
I still want to see you play it in VR.
No, fuck you. I'm not doing that.
I think you're too afraid to do it, but
I 100% am. I don't want my arms to be actually disconnected from my body.
It's a real problem.
Yeah, you'll scream and hit the ceiling fan, and you're cut off your arm or something. There you go. Nice.
That's Freudian right there, man.
But yeah, so that's what I've been up to.
Very good.
Well, then that does it for this week's episode on video games and brain research. Thank you so much, Matt James Davis. Thanks for coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks to MilkyWay.co for doing our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick online, I am PDYX.
Hey, I'm on Twitter, Matthew, MATHYOU.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Dr. Matt? Where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at the Matt Davis.
Very good. Nice. You got that very good.
You also have a podcast, right?
Oh yeah. So I have a neuroscience podcast called Brain Matters that I do with my good friend Anthony Lacanina. We were both in grad school neuroscience program, and we talk to neuroscience about their lives and research. It's a broad range of topics, and it's a lot of fun. We're on a bit of a indefinite hiatus, but apparently people are still leaving reviews on iTunes. So, that's good. If you want to hear more in-depth neuroscience-y stuff, then check that out. Brain Matters.
Very good. You got the backlog at the very least. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter. Make sure you give us a follow. We are also at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook. And then, of course, we got our website at www.switchheadz.com. And we've got our Discord community and our Facebook group that we are all very active on, and is a great place to connect with like-minded folks about topics that you might enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode on neuroscience and video games. And thanks again to Dr. Matt. It was a fantastic interview. We'll be back next week with a whole brand new episode. Not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to stick to my word. We're not telling you what future episodes are. But sometime in the future, there will be a new episode. It'll be Wednesday. Folks, other than that, let's all be safe out there. All right, you know, we're all going out to bars. We're playing pool. We're doing rock climbing. Okay, but you know, you can only do that if you get vaccinated. And if you're out in public, keep wearing a mask, even if you're vaccinated. Don't be an idiot. Don't be a numbnut. Okay, it doesn't mean if you're vaccinated that you can't give it to other people. So let's be smart up there and let's try to protect as many people as we can, even the ones who are kind of, you know, not a little too dumb to take the vaccine themselves. We got to protect them too, even though it sucks to do so. We love you guys very much. Hopefully soon I can stop having these speeches at the end of the episodes. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.